What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the fifth and final Indiana Jones film, starring, of course, Harrison Ford in the title role. This is our first Indiana Jones film since 2008's Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's been 15 years, and this is also our first Indiana Jones movie without Steven Spielberg at the helm. This, of course, is directed by James Mangold instead, who is a really great choice for something like this, given his pedigree both in franchise films like Logan and the Wolverine, as well as more dramatic fare like Ford vs. Ferrari, Western fare like 3:10 to Yuma. Incredible director, one of my favorites. And yeah, it's been a while. Harrison Ford is at this current time 80 years old, made this movie when he was like 78. It's the final go round for Indy and the gang. And I have to say, I'm happy to say I really like the movie. I thought it was a kind of a blast most of the time. It's long, for sure. There's quibbles to make about the length, but for the final send-off installment, I thought it was a very effective send-off for the character and for Ford. And I think you could make a case that's the third best indie movie over Temple of Doom. I probably wouldn't. I would say it's 4, but I think it's definitely better than Kingdom of Crystal Skull. And that's kind of all I needed this movie to be a success for me, but I genuinely really liked it. I think just, kind of right off the bat, it's interesting to reflect on this late period of Harrison Ford, right? Harrison Ford, one of the signature movie stars of all time, his run in the mid 70s through early 90s, the pre-Tom Hanks movie star run was occupied by Harrison Ford. It's a kind of undeniable run of films. And a big part of that was, of course, his role as Han Solo and his role as Indiana Jones and also his role as a Deckard in Blade Runner. And Harrison Ford has returned to all three of those roles in the last, 8 years. And I think this is some of the best acting late period Ford has given us. Obviously, he's the star of Dial of Destiny. He is not the star of Star Wars The Force Awakens or Blade Runner 2049. But I think Ford's really good in Dial of Destiny, and it's been cool to see him kind of nod to his famous roles of the past and have those go off into the sunset, if you will, like at the end of Last Crusade. And that's been great. Kind of surprised that Harrison Ford's still continuing to pursue big roles after this, like he's replacing William Hurt in Marvel for next year's Captain America movie. I thought 80-year-old Ford would kind of just want to be chilling, smoking weed, flying planes, but I don't know. He must like the work. But yeah, Dial of Destiny, big fan. And let's get into why. I think there's a lot to get into with this movie. This is the latest set in time indie film. It's set in 1969. And it starts off, though, with this big flashback sequence, quite a long set piece in where else? World War II. Once again, our villains are Nazis, the signature villain of the Indiana Jones films, of course. The two best Indiana Jones movies, Raiders and Last Crusade, both have Nazis as villains. This one does once again as well. And you have this really long scene in the past where Indy's pursuing an artifact, the Holy Lance, from Nazis towards the end of World War II. And it has, kind of ends with this big train sequence. I think it's really, really good quality set piece, and features perhaps the best de-aging technology we've ever got to this point. Obviously, that's a technology that's getting better and better, but it was really good, de-aged Harrison Ford. I think the quibble you can make about this scene is just that it's a bit unnecessary. It is a good set piece, for sure. And it introduces you to Toby Jones's character, a colleague of Indiana Jones, whose daughter, played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, of course, plays a big role in the present-day stuff with Dial of Destiny's plot. But the quibble you could make with this opening set piece is that you could cut this almost 20 minutes and maybe give you some exposition in the present day in some other manner, really to set up Phoebe Waller-Bridge, to set up our antagonist, and the movie would have been shorter. I'm sympathetic to that, but again, I thought it was a good enough set piece. I liked it. It's okay to leave it in for me, but I understand that we could have technically probably cut this and not have lost too much with the actual film. That's okay though. It also couldn't help but be a nod to me to the original, rumored like theme of what the fifth Indiana Jones movie was going to be about. This set piece is about, or culminates with a Nazi loot train trying to escape, into further into Europe. And the original, Jonathan Kasdan script that was not used for Indiana Jones 5 involved Indy's pursuit of a lost, buried in the mountain Nazi gold train, Nazi loot train, which is a famous, historical myth people have always thought about and dreamed about. It's kind of cool to see like a kind of like loose acknowledgement of that appear in the set piece. At least it, made my eyebrows raise. I thought it was cool. And also this flashback does a good job for us of setting up the villain of the film. Jürgen Voller, a Nazi scientist character, played by who other? Mads Mikkelsen. Perhaps the greatest villain actor we have working these days. He definitely knows how to play a bad guy. And spoiler alert, shockingly, he's really good once again as a bad guy in Indiana Jones 5. I liked it. It also, of course, sets us up for what the Chief MacGuffin will be in Dial of Destiny. The titular Dial of Destiny. No, it's not the Holy Grail once again. It's not the Ark of the Covenant. It is the Dial of Destiny, aka the Antikythera. Sorry, it's kind of hard to say that one. The Antikythera, which is a ancient Greek relic created by Archimedes, which was kind of like the first analog computer. It kind of tracked stuff in the sky and like space movements and things like that. And that is our artifact, which is cool. It's like a real thing that was actually being used as our MacGuffin in this film. And in general, one of the things I've always liked about the Indiana Jones movies, despite the fact that they're the best ones, are incredibly well made, action adventure films. And because they're made by Steven Spielberg, feature just amazing set pieces that live to this day. I also am a big fan of historical fiction. I like real world villains in the case of the Nazis. I like seeing Indiana Jones do things in and around history. And, because George Lucas helped conceive a lot of stuff in Indiana Jones, you have really fun premises to the more supernatural and science fiction aspects of the Indiana Jones stories. And I think the Antikythera fits right into that lineage of what's good about Indiana Jones, plots. So all that really works for me. And then we go to 1969 and we get old Indiana Jones, and we learn that Jürgen Voller, Mads Mikkelsen's character, he's now one of the, of course, Operation Paperclip Nazis who ended up working for NASA and being used for good, quote unquote. And he, of course, is seeking the Antikythera once again, which has been split to protect itself, etc., etc. Details. And the race soon becomes on, and we quickly encounter Phoebe Waller-Bridge's Helena Shaw character, the daughter of Toby Jones from the flashback. I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge is freaking fantastic in this movie. Obviously, I've been a big fan of hers ever since Fleabag. She's really proven herself as a comedic performer and something like that, as well as just an amazing writer. Fleabag, one of the best shows of the last 10 years. But also, Phoebe Waller-Bridge has been really in demand, doing key script punch-up work on No Time to Die, for example. Getting that big Amazon overall deal that she hasn't put anything out for really yet, but she's such a talent. And I think her writing maybe overshadows just how great an actor she is as well at times. I think she really fit in well, had great chemistry with Harrison Ford, acquitted herself well in the action scenes and the set pieces, fit right in. She clearly can do a type of like action adventure blockbuster film. Obviously she's not going to become the new Indiana Jones, but she can do something similar. I think she's clearly proved herself in this movie. I thought she was awesome. Before you know it, we get a lot of awesome classic jet setting, like some of the best Indiana Jones films. Once again, a lot of the shot location as well. We get this really fun stuff in Morocco and Tangier, the tuk-tuk, car chase. Great, really awesome, really ripping. Obviously it's a big, I think, bar to hit when it comes to car chases and car scenes. In Indiana Jones, you have the end of the Raiders chase scene, which is iconic. You have the tank stuff in Last Crusade, even the blimp stuff in Last Crusade. Vehicles are a big part of this franchise. I think the tuk-tuk stuff was great. We quickly go to, what is it, Greece, Sicily. I forgot the order of these. We go to Greece or Sicily, and we meet Antonio Banderas' character. He did underwater stuff. Really fun, I think, sight and nod to acknowledge Indiana Jones's fear of snakes via him encountering eels underwater. I thought that was pretty clever, pretty fun. And then we go to, from Greece/Sicily, we go to the other one, and we kind of get another kind of classic, going into a tomb and solving the stuff. It's a lot of indie tropes that but I think it's done so warmly and winningly. And I think overall, broadly, the movie is effective at everything it's portraying. That to me, it's okay that some of this plotting is a bit familiar to the franchise. I think that's totally fine because it's just such a great time the entire time. And I think I think probably the best aspect of Harrison Ford's acting in this would be the moment he has. I believe he's telling it to Shaw. I don't. He's whoever he says it to, but yeah, it must be Shaw, where he basically acknowledges why Shia LaBeouf's Mutt Williams character, Indiana Jones' son, why from Kicking the Crystal Skull, why Mutt's not in the film. We learn that Mutt actually enlisted in Vietnam to kind of get back at his dad, to make him mad, and he died. He died in the war, and that loss, that grief, actually is what drove Marion and Indiana Jones away and kind of broke their marriage. Because in the beginning of the present day stuff, we learn that Indiana Jones is alone. And the way Ford communicates that scene is great. Really some of the best stuff he's done in these big movies in a while. I think Ford's pretty good in Force Awakens, acting as well, but that scene's probably what you'd hold up as some of the best stuff that Ford has done in any of the big movies he's done lately. And that'll get paid off at the end of the movie, but I thought that was a really great moment. And, leading that in, you have the movie really kind of kicking off into the deep end, you could say, really going extreme, right? What happens in these movies? Ultimately, there's always a sci-fi element, right? The Ark of the Covenant is in fact real, and the power of God will smite the enemies of the Lord. In this case, he'll melt the fucking faces off of Nazis, right? Holy Grail is in fact real, and per the Grail myth that was concocted, years later, it does have the power to grant everlasting life, as evidenced by a literal knight from the Crusades living in the presence of the Grail to this day, right? Sci-fi stuff is a big aspect of Indiana Jones. Well, they push that to the absolute limit, because what is the Antikythera, the Dial of Destiny, being thought of as? Why is it being sought? This historical artifact that exists in real life, but what is the magical quality of Dial of Destiny? It's none other than the ability to find time fissures and go back in time. Yeah, fucking time travel movie, man. Multiple timelines. This is a storytelling device that we cannot escape in major movies. We have talked ad nauseum about the multiverse and timelines. This very summer with The Flash and Spider-Verse 2, it's very much on the mind. And somehow Indiana Jones 5 is joining the party with time travel. I would never have guessed it. But honestly, I think it really worked well. And it was really cool too, is Jürgen Voller, our villain, his motivation I thought was awesome. He wants to go back in time to World War II, but he wants to go kill Hitler. And I'm like, compelling. But why does he want to kill Hitler? Not for good. No, not the classic kill Hitler to stop the atrocities of history. No, Voller wants to kill Hitler so that the Nazis can win and Hitler's mistakes during the war won't be made. It's wow, that's cool. And I thought where this movie was going to go, when we realized they are in fact going to go back in time, I thought Ford would have to realize that he had to let Voller kill Hitler to not mess up the timeline, the canon events per Spider-Verse's terminology, right? I thought that's where we were going to go. But it doesn't actually go that way, which is fine. And what ends up happening is they try and go back in time, and which is really, I think, a really fun build up to that with airplane travel to get there. When we get to go back in time, they go back to the wrong part in time. They don't go back to the 40s. They go back to ancient Greece at the siege of Syracuse. And we actually meet in the flesh Archimedes himself, the creator of the dial, the creator of the Antikythera. our MacGuffin in the film. And that's how the dial gets brought to Archimedes, who hadn't finished making the dial at the time they travel back to. It's like, it's one of those closing of the loop, quote unquote, with the time travel stuff. But you also, I think, get some really poignant stuff where, like, Indiana Jones wants to stay. He wants to end his life because he's been wounded at this point. He wants to stay and kind of live out his last moments of life in history as it's taking place, and speak to Archimedes because he knows ancient Greek because it's Indiana Jones. He wants to spend his last moments doing that. And I was like, you know what? That actually is incredibly in sync with the character. And Ford gives a really committed, line readings in that moment. That was really working for me. And I thought that would have been an amazing send off if they had decided to do that. But no, Shaw forces Indy to come back. They go back to their times because they don't belong in this past, which is probably good for the timelines and the canon events, as we all know, because we think about the multiverse a lot these days. And what happens? None other than an absolutely moving and touching final scene where Karen Allen, returning to the franchise, Marion comes back, and Indiana Jones wakes up to Marion coming back, and they kind of embrace and seemingly agree to, live out the rest of their days together once again. And I thought it was just a really nice, warm send-off for the character, for Ford in many ways as a, movie star of our times. And I just really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was good. Other notes, I thought Boyd Holbrook kind of wasted as like the secondary villain, the heavy of Voller. Holbrook's a good actor, an engaging actor, and the script just doesn't give him a whole lot to do in Dial of Destiny, which feels like they wasted him a bit. Banderas has a small role, during the diving scene. Good for what he does, but whatever. You have the youthful sidekick of Shaw, played by Teddy, played by Ethan Isidore. I liked him a lot. I thought he was pretty good. Obviously, it's a nod to Short Round and Temple of Doom, but it's another good use of a child character. What else? Oh, we have Jonathan Rhys-Davies return in a small moment as a Sala. Of course, Indy sidekick in Raiders and Last Crusade. Notably, Jonathan Rhys-Davies, not an Egyptian man, playing an Egyptian. Certainly, he would not be cast in that role today. I don't know if it's necessarily like an offensive portrayal of someone playing some other race. So him coming back is not the worst thing in the world. We know it wouldn't happen today, and it's the last time it's going to happen. I think we can let it slide. And I do like Jonathan Rhys-Davies a lot. Obviously, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. I love him as Gimli. He's really fun as Sala. Just the Indy, the way he speaks, the gregarious presence he has. I do enjoy Sala, I must say. Yeah. Best de-aging we've ever had, I think, is in the beginning of this movie. That's no small feat to me. I like Dial of Destiny. I think it's the fourth best Indiana Jones movie, but not too far behind 3. It's a really good time. And, a lot's been made about the box office with this film. Box office coming in soft. This movie having a gigantic budget due to its location shooting, its de-aging CGI, other CGI use. Expensive movie to make. Made even more so by the fact that Harrison Ford got injured on set, which ran up costs while he had to recover. The movie was made during COVID, which added additional costs. Expensive movie to make, over $300 million. There was really no world where this movie would have made enough money to gross and justify that big of a budget on the business side of things. It's not going to happen. I don't really care about that, though. Movie's good. I'm happy with it. And hey, if Disney has to take a loss in the box office, I think this will be a movie that people will like, and it'll be a fixture on Disney Plus. And yeah, they'll take the loss, but I don't know. This was a really fun time. I think a creatively worthwhile use of that money. So yeah, I think people sometimes, and I'm certainly guilty of it, we get hung up on the box office and the yeses and the nos when it comes to things earning enough. And sometimes we also have to just think about the creative side of things, and that it's okay sometimes And I think for everyone who made this movie, and being in the movie, there's really no skin off their back. So, alas, we've had two big bombs lately, to varying degrees, with The Flash and Indiana Jones 5, and even a little while ago, Shazam 2. We've had some bombs this year. We've also had some hits. It'll be okay. But yeah, let me know. How did you feel about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny? Long movie. Did you feel it was a fitting conclusion to wrap up the way I did? And for more movie reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time.